We now have a panel to launch the white papers. This panel is moderated by Nisaba Godrej. Nisaba is the chairperson and managing director of Godrej Consumer Products Limited. She has been a key architect of GCPL's strategy and transformation in the last decade. She is also the chairperson of Teach for India and sits on the board of Godrej Agrovet, Mahindra and Mahindra, and VIP Industries. She has a BSc degree from the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania and an MBA from Harvard Business School. Nisaba is passionate about education, the human mind, trekking, and equestrian sports. Nisaba, I request you to introduce the panelists and take over from here. Thank you.
Thank you, Anu. And all our panelists have, these amazing resumes, and I'm so excited to be here with them today. So let me just start off by saying a really, really big thank you to TFI and to Shaheen for their leadership in this crisis and continuing this very, very important work to flatten the curve on education inequity. We know there are lots of curves we have to flatten, but this work has been going on for a decade, and even during the current crisis, it continues so strongly. We've been talking about the national educational policy over the last week. It's an important and ambitious document, and it speaks to many promising changes. It talks about attaining foundational literacy, ensuring a holistic education, building 21st century skills, constitutional values, and many more great and good things for our children. Yet it's also silent on some additional pieces, such as the role of student voice transforming education, the role of parents, the role of digital access, and child rights and protection. So I'm very happy to be here today with these wonderful panelists launching 3 white papers. This is TFI's attempt to further support schools and the government. And we believe that these are not only topics that are close to our heart and align with the work we do, but the implementation of these practices are very well aligned with the national education policy's priorities. Of these, we've chosen 3 topics. And the first one is blended learning, a digital equalizer. The second one is building 21st century skills and student leadership. And the third one is child protection and safety in school. To help us understand each of these better, we have 2 of the authors here with us. We have Sandeep Rai, who is the Chief of City Operations at Teach for India, the author of Grey Sunshine, and an all-around awesome guy. He has authored the white paper. He's absolutely awesome personal experience. And he has authored the white paper on blended learning, a digital equalizer. While I don't know our other panelists well, they're also very awesome. So we have Kiranbir Sethi with us. She's many, many, many things. So let's make sure I get all of them here. She's a designer who became a teacher, who grew into an education reformer, and subsequently is now an incredible social entrepreneur, inspiring so many of us with her work. And last, but of course not least, is we have Kumar Shelab. He is associated with HUC, the Center for Children's Rights in New Delhi, as the co-director. And he has authored this very, very important white paper on child protection and safety in schools. So I'm going to start off with the first question. And so to all of you, what is in India where blended learning, child protection, 21st century skills, and student leadership have been, what does it look like if it's been successfully implemented? Kiran, would you like to go first?
Well, then we take a holiday. If we can manage all of that. I think it's a very loaded question, if I have to say. And there's so many nuances to that. So it's not an easy question to answer. I mean, if we get it right, then we honor the constitutional preamble. I mean, we the people of India, right? I mean, if we get it right, then all of that vision that lends itself to who we are as a people will be honored, will have a real chance, will have a real chance of being manifested in reality. Having said that, India is such an incredibly diverse sort of country with so many different needs. I don't think it'll ever be a simple, what will it look like? It'll look like many things. It'll look like, I think, teacher education that will have a new belief system. I wanted to actually respond to the thing of the 21st century skills. And there's so much work around, the 8 C's that I see the TFI share. I'm increasingly getting more convinced that while the skills is easier to teach, it's belief systems that are far more difficult. So we might have 21st century skills, but we're in the hands of 20th century mindset, we're not going to do a very good job. And I think our belief systems, we're not even aware. So many of us are not even aware of the biases we have, which don't serve our children well. I mean, as simple as the eternal conversation between engineering and the arts, right? I mean, the fact that we might just say that I am rich and therefore I am successful, or that, play is not serious. So we harbor these belief systems which come in the way of the skills. So our belief systems have, I think, to have the first addresser. We have to be able to be self-aware. We have to understand that our belief systems are formed by 3 ways. One is the way we're born, our genes, et cetera, et cetera. But the other 2 are in our hands. The one is what we say, see, and do every single day. And that's the role where education can play a marvelous role. And the third is role modeling. All of neuroscience says that we will mimic what we see. And if we don't address that most urgent need of being self-aware about who we are and understand that we have conflicting belief systems, we will not do a very good job about whether it's blended or not. It doesn't really matter. If I'm going to keep telling a child that you are young, you are a girl, and you will have only this, it doesn't matter. I'll make you curious. I'll make you creative. I'll make you collaborate. I'll make you communicate well. But it's not going to serve to get a child to thrive, and then therefore a nation to thrive, and therefore a world to thrive. So that's really where I'm kind of in understanding which serves which first. Are we supposed to be self-aware with our belief systems, and then we serve the skills? I'm possibly veering more towards that. So that's why and that's why India is so complex. The belief systems that reside even in every state and every 5 kilometers will determine a lot of how we do with our skills. So, well, that's my consistent sort of, I wake up every day to say, I have to be self-aware. Where am I? Where am I today? What do I understand about my child? Then voice and choice will be a natural sort of subset of that. So I'm a big fan right now, figuring out what are my belief systems and where are my biases. So that's really where I'm at.
Fantastic, thanks. Kumar, what is in India where, what you're talking about in your white paper on child protection, what does it look like?
As a country, we have a long way to go when we talk of child protection. And especially now link it with the current education system. We have a kind of gender parity in our schools. And that's why this new education policy is such an ambitious document, which talks about achieving sustainable development goals, bringing down gender parity, and also increasing retention and decreasing dropout rates. But the focus where we actually lose out is that we do not tend to make our schools safer place, And when we talk of making our schools safer, it's not just physical safety we should look at. It's also about looking at mental health. And so club it together, make schools a holistic place where children would want to come. So like Kiran said, what does it really take for children to thrive on, and then take it onto the country to thrive on, So until unless we are able to make our children believe that school is a place where they are safe. I mean, why does midday meal? Why is midday meal a good concept, and why did it have a lot of success? Children knew that if they're going to school, they're going to have at least one day meal, and that kind of inculcated a thought process into parents as well. So we need to make our children believe that schools are going to be safer. We need to make parents believe that yes, that's one place where amidst all the crisis, if one fails to provide security within the family, but school is a place where for few hours at least the child is going to be safe. So that's where we have to look at, that's where we have to march on if we really want to achieve sustainable development goals. And truly speaking, SDGs, yes or no, but uh, the future is asking for much more from our country, right? So that's what I think, and that's why that was the driving force while making this white paper on child protection in schools. Yeah.
Sandeep?
Yeah, first of all, resonate with so much of what you both just said. I love that the future is demanding much more of us, and Kieran, I think it's going to stay with me for a while that 21st century skills in the hands of 20th century mindsets is not going to get the job done. And so I think I resonate with both of those quite a bit. I mean, look, the short answer is radically different. If all of these can get implemented successfully, the short answer is radically different. I'm going to talk a little bit about what I see as the linkages between, particularly if we're able to make 21st century skills and blended come together, because they fit so well together. I mean, consider a few numbers, right? Consider that it was a recent analysis done about 6 months ago, actually, that said that 60% of today's jobs, 60% actually demand digital literacy, demand 21st century skills like interpersonal skills, critical thinking, communication, right? Compare that to where we think our education system is now. Ashish Dhawan was just speaking as a keynote a few hours ago, right? He actually quoted a number where he said 55% of kids in India suffer from learning level poverty, which means that by the time they get to 5th standard, they're not even able to catch up or comprehend anymore because they don't have the basics, right? Take another one, which is, out of the 260 million school-going kids in India, about 94% of them are arguing over and over again that, hey, we believe deeply that technology can help us, but consider where our schools currently are. And I think when you take all of those together, the truth is that if we can make these work, it has the potential to flip those numbers around, right? And if it can flip those numbers around, it can actually create a country that's radically different. And that's one where kids are able to use technology, not just for the sake of using technology, but to actually personalize learning for themselves. It's one where classrooms aren't teaching to the law of averages and into an outdated industrialized model of education, but where they're actually personalizing learning so that kids are able to learn at their own levels. And when you think about what that's able to do for the future of India, for the world's fastest growing young population, which we hold, it has the potential to be radical, but we have to cross some pretty important hurdles, which I think both of you just mentioned in order for us to get there.
And what do you all feel? Who are the key stakeholders in making some of this happen? Right? If we have to move forward from here, who are these key stakeholders?
I think the most obvious ones would be the adults who are caretakers of our children on a daily basis. I mean, that's your first. There are those that meet our children often, etc. So I think a lot of it would come from just the way. I keep saying, and coming back to what both Kumar and Sandeep said, the idea of a mindset, that's why the belief system thing makes such a big thing for me to say that the current generation of teachers have a belief system that there are certain biases that exist and are filters by which we look at our children. That our respect means that children will listen. Respect in India is considered that you will be compliant. And we celebrate and honor compliance over conversation, right? And how do you shift that? And then you cannot say voice and choice and all of that. So I think there's a conflict in that. And so the awareness of where my biases are, we don't do a good job of that. We equip them with strategies, but not of self-awareness. So I think in that comes the conflict and the tension. So I think the first foremost idea is understanding where I am and where are my conflicting belief systems when I'm looking at children. I mean, and in India has an array of issues where we are very creative in figuring out how to divide each other. And this is not good enough, and they are not good. So therein lies where we will consistently struggle. And I think we will do a good job in making sure child accesses and has access to digital technology. That's the easy part. That's the easy part. We give it to them and we think it's done. It's absolutely, that's just not there. And coming back to what Kumar said, we are thinking of safety in schools. The very fact that we are into a blended reality, I was shocked to know that there was from 13 to 17-year-olds, the highest traffic was to porn sites over Netflix, Twitter, and Amazon. Now think about that as guardrails. Where are the guardrails for our children online? So it's very flippant to think that blended is going to serve our children emotionally and spiritually. Cognitively, I think we'll still do a better job. But I think it's asking all of us to figure out what do we want for our children today so that they will be able to thrive tomorrow. And it's an urgent and really, really important thing. But I think teachers and role models, etc. I'm constantly going back to role models. How are we worth role modeling? How do we become worthy of being mimicked? So I think for me, that's really where I would start. I would start there, and everything else. Media. We have fantastic media doing its great jobs. I think there also. We never talk about education and mindsets. Anyway, so I would like to start with just the most immediate people who meet our children every single day.
And Kiran, what I hear you saying is that it's almost like conscious parenting and conscious educators who have the self-awareness to realize that, the children don't belong to them. They're just, like that very famous Brown poem, that, you're just here to set them free. So on the mindset piece, very, very powerful point. Kumar, Sandeep?
I would say that, looking education from a very rights-based perspective, I would say government or the state is the primary duty bearer. It's high time that education must be seen not just with the lens of welfare, because it is not. It is a matter of right. It's fundamental right, and who has to make that right available for children? It's the state's responsibility, right? Then parents, teacher, other authorities, they become the secondary duty bearers. So while parenting, teachers, authorities, they play a very crucial aspect in providing or making education or achieving this dream of education in full sense and in full spirit. State's role is much more significant. I'll just give an example. The new education policy talks about increasing financing for education to 6% of GDP. Right now, this is not something new. We have had committees over the time have been saying that we need to spend 6% of GDP on education. But now the government has acknowledged that, and that's a positive of the whole document. But how? I mean, over the years, spending for education has been fluctuating. It has never crossed more than 3%. So there, the role of government becomes much more crucial. And it's only about political will, which we can look for. If that kicks in positively and majorly, because all the states are facing election, and election is such a regular phenomena these days. Every second year or every year you have election somewhere. So unless education becomes a part of political will, we will still be struggling and having such discussion. And I completely resonate with what Kiran said. about having a value system, having a belief system. Otherwise, we will be just forcing schemes after schemes on teachers and educators. So we need to have inculcate, we need to design programs which challenges the value system and belief system. And apart from that, we really need to invest into infrastructure and the systems available for making education a reality, not just a dream.
Yeah, I won't add too much to this, but I think everybody. I think in order for us to bring out both the real tactical changes as well as the cultural shifts that Kieran alluded to, I think it has to be everybody. Like, I think it needs to be teachers, parents, kids, government institutions. And I think we could go out and carve out the role for each of those, right? Like, as we were putting this paper together, there's a lot of debate out there that says, maybe actually technology has the potential to replace teachers. And the truth is that our findings are telling us the opposite, are telling us that all the research says that when you combine the two of those together, you get the best results for kids. Right? So teachers have to be agents of change for all three of these, whether it's getting blended to work, personalized learning, or figuring out how to keep our kids more safe. Like, teachers have to be at the forefront of those efforts, but it's also kids, right? If we're going to give kids a 21st century education, what does it mean to get kids to be more active learners and not just passive recipients? And what does it mean to share power with kids so that kids are actually in charge of their education? Parents, I think that it's interesting. This pandemic has basically it's put parents in the driver's seat of their kids' education. And it's almost made the parent the HM in many situations, right? So it's taken us from 1.5 million schools in India to 260 million schools, where parents are thinking about infrastructure, a learning environment in so many different ways. And so what would it mean to be able to keep parents as involved whenever we go back to some of this? But I think that, I think it's everyone.
Thank you. And can I ask you, before we do the official launch of the papers, to just, share some, the most important closing thought or thought you want to leave people with here?
Self-awareness.
I only hope it is received well, and and yeah, we look forward to working with states and government, because there is a lot of skepticism while writing down this paper. That how much of it is going to be actually received, and how it will be received. So yeah, that's the closing thought I can say.
So I think we have to go with our imagination also, correct? Because otherwise, if we go, by what the reality is of today, we won't get very far. So I think the raison d'etre of things that organizations like Teach for India, all the people participating today, is that there is a better tomorrow. And, we are very, very capable as human beings of creating that better tomorrow. If we want to. Sorry, Sandeep, you were saying.
No, resonate with that. I think that I would just say that I think the three directions that are outlined here are inevitable paths, right? But we have to figure out how to embrace them and embrace them intentionally. And so when it comes to technology, for example, there is an inevitability about technology, but embracing it intentionally is very different than just putting hardware in the hands of kids, for example. And so what does it mean to plan intentionally around that so that we're purposeful in how we're rolling a lot of this out? And I think that means, how do we make investments in innovation? How do we continue to invest in the research to find out what's working and what's not working? And the second thing that I would, say is just echoing what I said earlier, which is that teachers and people matter. And I think that the best thing that we can be doing is investing in them and not trying to circumvent them. And if we continue to invest in them, then I think we'll be able to unlock more solutions. And I think that's true for all three of these paths.
Thank you.
Yay, we did it.
And now we are ready to launch the white papers.
Yay!
Thank you so much, Nisaba, Sandeep, Kiran, and Kumar. Do you want to do a share? Do you want me to share my screen and show the white papers to the audience at this point?
Yes, please.
Sure. That'd be great.
To those watching us live right now, here's our website and here's the white papers page. As you can see, we have various white papers over here. I'm quickly going to read out all the titles. Framework for Teacher Education, Learnings from Teacher Development Program. Repurposing Curriculum and Assessments for Deep Learning. Working with Parents as Co-Educators. Cultivating Teacher Growth. NEP and Early Childhood Education, Connecting Intent to Implementation. A Case for the Integration of Arts in Our Schools. School Leadership Recruitment and Training. Teacher Career Growth. Blended Learning Practices. Child Protection and Safety in Schools. Enabling young adults to lead their journey towards employability, and building 21st century skills and leadership in students. Those are all the white papers that we have uploaded on our website today for all of you to go and read.